Thanks for watching. I'm Margot Kinberg, and this is In the Spotlight, a closer look at a crime novel. Crime novels with a past-present connection, even two timelines, can present not just an interesting story and a plot, but also inform the reader about a different time period. Let's take a look at how that works today and turn the spotlight on Ed Church's Non-Suspicious. Detective Constable Brooke Dealman is a North London police officer who's nearing the end of his final night shift. Not long before the end of their shift, he and his police partner, Detective Sergeant Kevin Padmore, are called to the scene of a death. The victim is an old man whose body's been found in a churchyard. On the surface, it looks very much like an elderly alcoholic fell, hit his head, and died of his injuries. Padmore is willing enough to accept that explanation, but Dealman notices one or two things that make him wonder if there was something more to what happened. It's not long before the dead man is identified as Victor Watson. With that information, Dealman and Padmore begin to ask questions and look more deeply into the matter. They slowly learn some things about Watson. It seems that he grew up in what used to be called a foundling home. He managed to get an education and was later a World War II veteran. He didn't have a vast fortune to leave, he wasn't involved in questionable business deals, and he didn't have a police record. So the question becomes, who would want to kill him, and for what reason? Then there's another death that could be related. Now Dealman and Padmore have a much more complicated case on their hands. In the meantime, we follow another timeline that takes place in the spring of 1945. World War II is all but over, but the POW camps have not yet been opened. Victor Watson is a POW prisoner who's trying to survive the camp and do what he can to help his fellow prisoners. As this timeline moves along, we gradually learn how it will impact what happens decades later. So, what are the elements in this novel? What keeps those timelines going? Well, this is in many ways a police procedural. We follow along as Dealman and Padmore get information, interact with forensics, talk to people of interest, and so on. But it's also the story of surviving World War II in a POW camp. The two timelines don't meet up, but as the story goes on, we see how one impacts the other, and we learn what motivated the two murders. So it really is a past affecting the present sort of a story. It's also worth noting that each chapter is labeled with the time period, so it's easy to work out what is happening to who and when. The story is told mostly from Brooke Dealman's perspective, third person, past tense. So another element in the novel is his character. He's originally from Botswana, and that impacts his way of looking at life. He's no longer young and eager, but he isn't entirely cynical either. He is smart and determined, and although he's not a maverick, he's willing to forget to tell someone something or lose some paperwork if it gets the job done. He is set on getting justice for Victor Watson, a war veteran who shouldn't have ended up poor in a graveyard, dead and alone. Part of the story takes place in a POW camp, so as you can imagine, there is violence in it. It isn't overly protracted or gratuitous, but it's there. There's also violence in the present day timeline. Readers who prefer their crime fiction with no violence will notice this. The novel has a touch of noir. There aren't really any heroes, although Dealman keeps his hands clean. There are some interesting questions, too, about what counts as justice and what one's willing to do to survive. Non-Suspicious is the story of the long shadows that the past can cast. It features two strange deaths, a look at what people do to survive, and a protagonist who's determined to give a war veteran justice. This has been In the Spotlight. I'm Margot Kinberg. Thanks for watching.